Good, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to Township of Nipissing Council meeting, Tuesday, November 14th, 6:30 PM. To introduce council and staff to Kim Turnbull. She is our intern, will be with us contract for a year. And I'd just like everybody to welcome her, and she's already leapt in and joined us last night at rec committee, so welcome, Kim, and all the best. Having said that, I'll move on to committee reports, and I'll go around, and first of all, Councillor Yam.
I have nothing tonight.
Okay. Councillor Foot.
I have
you do.
two. So we have the EMS committee, and that was about 4 weeks ago approximately now. So there was a Matthew Thomas joined us, and it was a systems performance analytics. So they really dug in and gave us kind of where we're at. And they talked about the codes calls, number 1 being deferrable, number 2 being scheduled, number 3 being prompt and urgent, and number 4 being an emergency call. So lights and sirens going. So we talked a lot about the code 4 calls in 2015 compared to 2022. So that's kind of what they have to compare to, right? At this stage of the game, they're up 43% code 4 calls. And a lot of it is, they're saying it's seasonal people staying put. So they saw a lot of increase through COVID. The response times went from 12.1 minutes to 12.1 to 13.1 minutes. So it's a 1 minute increase in response times for a 43% increase, which really wasn't bad. And they were pretty happy about that. July and August, which is their biggest times, response times were 14.2 minutes. And they went up at 1 point to 14.5. So July and August is big, right? So and that's what they're saying right across the board as we go. We talked a little bit about financials and the 2023 financials, and they're in good standing. Sound will come in on budget. A lot about the Berks Falls Fire EMS base collaboration. So they're really working on that, and more will come into it, and trying to find ways to bring the code down because it's expensive. It's huge. Talking about the EMS collaboration and the consolidation and everything going, and it's a win-win for them. It's good for Parry Sound EMS, where they're winning and they feel like they'll have better control over what's going on, better control over the calls. And the dispatch is being funded by the Ministry of Health. So again, that's going to come into effect. The budget for 2024. So the budget coming into 2024 is approximately 3.85%. It could go up to 4, but that's approximately where it's at. And one of the questions asked at the meeting was, is there a way to bring that down? Is there a way to bring that increase down? And they said, not without cutting services, because 80% of their budget is boots on the ground. Boots on the ground running, 20% of it is min. So there's really not a way to bring it down without cutting services. And that's really what we had at that whole meeting. That's what all came down to. And the other one I have is committee, or we had rec committee last night. So rec committee last night was kind of fun. We did really good. We only did wattle drive this month for one of the landfills. We did the one, we had to leave some behind because the trailer was jam packed, and we collected 177.20 this week. So we did okay, and we'll take care of the rest of it this week. Teen dances, they had a teen dance also. Lower attendance than the last one. We really are wondering if it's because we had it on a Saturday night as opposed to a Friday night, and did we cut into parents' weekends? So we're gonna go back to Fridays and see if that helps. And the kids loved it, absolutely loved it. Halloween, 99 bags given out between both fire halls, and it was fun. Stevie joined me in Halloween. We had a great time. Some decorated, some We decorated both fire halls, we had costumes, we had a shark out there, a little bit of everybody. And with the weather being as rough as it was, I was surprised we had as many kids as we did. But they had a great time. I think they really liked the fire halls. And they like to go get their pictures taken with the fire truck, and we put that out there and the lights are going and they have a great time. So it was good. Christmas run, great response coming up. It's open again till
Friday.
Friday. So that's when it's open to. So we just need to get everybody in and get everybody going. And then it'll be fun to do that. I did Christmas run last year. It was the best day of my entire year, going out there with the kids and having some fun. So Santa Claus and the fire trucks. Commanda community update. Commanda is running a bazaar and bake sale on December 10th. So, and they're doing their annual community dinner that night also. So, and then New Year's Eve, they're gonna have a New Year's Eve party out of Commanda. And it's just like jam. Whatever local artists come in, they're just gonna do a jam session and music, and it's just food bank donation. That's all they want to come in. So I think it's really kind of cool. And we're gonna try and help them. And then at the end of the meeting, we really worked on the 2024 calendar and events and budgeting. It's a lot of work, and 2024 looks exciting. I'm not really gonna get into everything that's going on because it was a lot of work, but once we get it finalized, we can go more from there. So I think that's the most of, did I miss anything? I don't think so. Yeah. Did I miss anything? No.
No, we don't want to ruin the surprise, so we'll wait.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to Councillor Kirky,
I have nothing this week.
but you sure had a lot in the correspondence,
Yes, I did.
all the library minutes.
So, well, we have a library meeting next week, but the library minutes, I noticed that they do June, July, and repetitively sometimes.
Yep. Got them all. Okay, and Councillor Butler.
Nothing this time.
Okay, and all I have is East Home meeting from October 25th. For funding, we've applied for more funding for diagnostic equipment. And we'd like everybody to get into East Home needs an X-ray. And what usually happens, they come to East Home and then you have to have an X-ray. So then you gotta arrange transportation, and by now family is gone, whatever. So community services, ambulance, whatever, back to get an X-ray and then come back. So they looked at X-ray machine, said it would be perfect. Then they went around, nobody will read those X-rays if it isn't on their machine. So you'd have to hire an X-ray technician, and for the 30 people you have a year, it's not gonna work. So we will look at something else. Another thing they looked at was bariatric lifts and beds. Bariatric is for bigger people, okay? That a normal lift won't work, so they are looking at that in the local priorities fund. As far as staffing, continue trying to attract new workers, and we still can't fill all the shifts with, our temporary workers and still can't do it. We're finding that a lot of people that got the training for free, after they got it, they decided, wow, this is really hard. And they just chose not to continue. So it's been really tough. But community support services, and you were mentioning that tonight, a funding application for an information program. They gave us their second quarter report, and we had to renew the lease for their space at the old doctors, whatever, in Powassan. And they're still investigating a van replacement because there are a number of vans out there right now, but ours doesn't end until January. And what they're saying is if you wait till January, there might not be any other vans. But we can't have two at once because, you're double paying for two. So we will wait and see what happens. I'm sure there will be. It's perhaps a sales pitch, whatever. Building maintenance and capital, continue insurance work. They're down to one thing left demanded by the insurance, but to do that, they have to shut everything down in the building. No power whatsoever, which will make it interesting because that's happening November 28th. So that also means no elevators, no heat, no light, no anything. So it's gonna have to be done relatively quickly. They continue doing network migration from former providers to Siemens. Don't understand that, but I'm sure John Paul does. They had 2 change orders to finish up the building itself, contract and compliance. What they worked on this month was they had an on-site long-term care inspection for critical incidents. Remediation is already in place. Program evaluation, continuous quality improvement, emergency preparedness, WSIB excellence. So, ton of paperwork. The next meeting is November 22nd, so next Wednesday, and the next building meeting is to be determined because now they're at substantial completion. So hopefully we get her done. So, any other questions? Okay, so next, we're following along. Okay, the minutes of the meeting held October 17th, the mover and the seconder, Dave and Tom, thank you. So it's number R 2023-206. It was moved by Councillor Butler, seconded by Councillor Yam, that the minutes of the meeting held October 17th, 2023 be adopted as published. All in favor? Carried. Next, number 4, presentation by Pigeon on the state of the township of Nipissing landfills, update on application for expansion, and updates on next steps. And Jillian, thank you for joining us at the table. I was going to invite you over. So now, I think, are we on yet?
I think I'm here.
Hi, Tim.
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'd like to welcome Tim and Alana from Pigeon. And like I said, they're here to talk about the state township of Nipissing landfill. So Tim, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen here so that we can, hopefully this works and you guys will have access to the presentation. I believe you have printed copies anyways, but I just wanted to have it up there. So yeah, perfect. So thanks for having us, everyone. I believe it was May 6th or May 8th, somewhere in there, where we presented the 2022 findings to council, but we're kind of ahead of the game this time. So we thought we'd take this opportunity, present the draft reports before we finalize them, and give everyone an update as to where we're at with some of the projects that we have ongoing right now. So. Okay. So yeah, so there's myself, it's Tim McBride, and I'm the qualified person, PGO, hydrogeologist, and the director of Northern Ontario, also the director of landfill and municipal services within Pigeon. As always, I have with me Alana. She's our engineer in training, our project manager for this particular project. She spent couple sampling exercises out on the sites, so she has firsthand knowledge and she's seen the operations up close and personal. So she's here with me tonight as well, and she's one of my co-authors on these reports. So tonight, I don't want to take up too much of your time. but I do want to talk about the current monitoring programs at both of the facilities. I want to talk about the 2023 results, some recommendations for 2024 moving forward, a little discussion about remaining site capacity for both sites, and an additional item under Bear Creek where we want to talk about the expansion application. So for 2023 for Bear Creek, nothing has changed. We still have the 6 groundwater monitoring wells that are used to assess the condition of the groundwater and the natural attenuation of any landfill derived leachate on the property before it gets to off-site receptors. In addition to that, we also have 6 surface water monitoring stations. One of the things that we did do in 2023 is we did some minor well repairs. We adjusted the PVC pipe so that the lockable casings could close and be locked. And on another well, number 4, we actually replaced the lockable casing so that it could be locked, and the network could be secure. So I know on a big screen, you guys probably can't make heads or tails of this, but there is a pretty detailed map of what's going on site right now. There's the active fill area. That's the black line. And then that's the licensed area is the black line. And then you have some of the waste placement areas on site. And the 2022 waste placement areas are also shown there. But more importantly, and probably most important thing about this presentation is the location of the monitoring wells. You can see that we have a smattering of wells in the down gradient area before we get to the surface water receptors, which is the direction of groundwater flow in this area. This is just a higher level image, so you can see the position of the surface water monitoring stations as well. So you can see, in addition to those wells between the property and the dump operations and the wetland, we also sample the wetland in several locations to try and differentiate what might be coming off highways versus what might be coming off the landfill. So I'll get right to the punchline here. 2023 results for groundwater and surface water are very similar to previous findings. We have not identified any significant landfill-related impacts at the Bear Creek site. Groundwater is in compliance with the trigger level program. So the trigger level program here is set at a percentage of the drinking water standards. So for non-health related parameters, like iron, for example, it's set at 50% of the drinking water standard. And then for health-related parameters, it's even more conservative, and we would set it based on a calculation, and it's close to 25% of the drinking water standards. So, and we call that B7, B7 analysis. So if you fail B7, it's kind of like a trigger to say, hey, there's something going on at this site we should look at fixing before we actually have an off-site issue that's going to affect drinking water conditions or surface water conditions. So that was a mouthful I just spilled out there, but the long and the short of it is, this year's results, and similar to previous results, we still do not have any trigger level non-compliance. So we're in good shape there. There's no evidence of landfill gas migration. So when the crews go out in the spring and the fall, immediately after they open the wells, they have a 4-channel gas meter, and they put that down the well just to make sure that there's no methane or anything like that could be migrating off site and causing issues at nearby residents, or even if you guys had to do subgrade excavation to change a culvert or anything like that. There's no gas migration that's detected in any of the wells. And then again, surface water monitoring results are consistent with those that we found in previous years. So yeah, in the down gradient wells that are closest to the wetland, so number 9 and number 10, there's some B7 trigger concentrations that are elevated. We have iron exceedances in the spring and the fall. We have dissolved organic carbon and total dissolved solids in well number 10 in the spring and the fall. And then we have dissolved organic carbon in well number 9 in the spring only. In the fall, it was back down within acceptable levels. I know everyone's going to read these landfill reports, and I don't want to ruin the ending for you, but the above noted exceedances are not interpreted to be landfill derived. So we've determined that, as is typical in Northern Ontario, like iron often exceeds or it's elevated in shallow sand and gravel aquifers. DOC is elevated, and it can be elevated for a number of different, natural and anthropogenic sources. So again, we have determined that these issues are not landfill related. So for 2024, we're suggesting we just move forward with the program as is. We wouldn't have an opportunity to decrease the program because it is a functioning landfill, and the sampling that you do is part of your license. But we're also not recommending that we do anything more. I don't think that there's anything that we need to add to the program at this point in time. The one thing that you guys do, and I'd ask that you continue to do, is the regular annual topo surveys. What we do with those topographical surveys is we use it to estimate how much waste you bring in every year. And from that, we develop, what we want to do, and we don't have the data yet, is we want to develop a running average of how much waste you bring in on any given year. And then using that, we can forecast the lifespan of the landfill. So speaking of which, we just did the survey in the last month. We wanted to wait till it was vegetation free conditions, so that we did it by drone. So we wanted to make sure there was no leaves or tall grasses that were going to skew our results. So we took advantage of that window between when the vegetation dies down and when snow hits the ground. But I do have a little summary just to refresh everyone's memory. There was a survey done in 2021. We did another survey in 2022. Between those two events, we had about 2850 cubic meters of waste that was placed at site. And then we were able to calculate what was left in the landfill site. And that equated to about 4 years remaining as of last year. So I'm really interested to see the results from 2021 to 2022 to 2023. And we're going to kind of set up a running average of the waste deposition rates and forecast out how many years we still have left. With the 4 years, obviously, there is a need to do something. And the township has asked us to explore opportunities for expansion at this particular site, and that's something that we're working on now. And that survey data is really going to feed into that and help support our argument and the application to the ministry. So I know everyone's probably thinking like, hey, Tim, we talked about this in March. Like, why isn't this thing already underway? So what happened in August was the ministry issued a new regulation, 243-23. And in it, it said that you could only expand your landfill by 25%. This landfill is licensed for 40,000 cubic meters. So, to expand it by 25% would have only got us to 50,000 cubic meters. And at a waste deposition rate of almost 3,000 a year, that was only going to give us another 3 years. So Alana and I were like, whoa, like, this is a lot of money. This is a lot of effort to spend to only get another 3 years. Like, maybe we're best to direct our client to enter into the EA process and spend this next 4 years going after a big landfill, right? Again, that is a lot of money and a lot of effort. So Alana was in discussions with the MECP on one of her other sites, and mentioned how this was a challenge for us, especially on small sites. And they pointed us to an exemption for small sites. So sites that are 40,000 cubic meters or less, we still have the opportunity to double the size without triggering this new regulation and without triggering the need for an environmental assessment where we would have to look at bugs and bunnies and do, you know, extensive public consultation and all the other supporting studies. So as it is right now, we could push this to 80,000 cubic meters. And what we would have to do to support that application is highlight to the ministry as how are you going to utilize that 80,000 cubic meters. So what we have to do is develop a design and operations plan that shows them how you're going to use that asset. And then that'll be the municipality's roadmap for the next, 20 years, let's hope, as to how do you use the landfill and what do you accept and what do you not accept. And I think there's some real opportunities there with some of the other status reports and stuff like that I've seen from staff to incorporate some best management practices into the landfill. For example, how do we work on our waste diversion strategies? And how do we put some of the onus of that maybe on industry? And how do we educate the general public as to, what goes to the landfill and what can go to recycling? And there's a whole other piece of that too, with respect to accountability. Like, how do we hold the community accountable for waste diversion? So there's ways you can do that. You can do bag limits or bag tags, or some municipalities do clear bags where, if you see recyclable material in the clear bag, there's certain things that you could do to help direct them to the right sources of diversion, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's some real good opportunities there between, some of the waste management strategies that staff is considering and this design and operations plan that'll allow us to get the biggest bang for the buck that we can out of this expansion. So once we prep that design and operations plan, then we do the actual ECA amendment application. And, once the ministry is happy with that, they will issue a new license for the landfill, which will dictate, the size of the landfill, kind of the layout of how things are going to be constructed. And then there will be all the conditions in it as well as to what kind of waste you can accept and how do you accept certain things, what your monitoring program is going to look like, et cetera, et cetera. One thing that I would really like to change, and hopefully I can go backwards in this presentation. One thing that's really awkward about the site and the current layout is just the geometry of it. And this is probably the best figure to look at. Like, you have this red property line here, and you can see like the landfill limits to the black line, and then you have a buffer area around it. And it kind of doesn't make sense. Like, it almost runs like at a 45-degree angle as to what it should go. You know what I mean? Like, you almost want to have the fire break and buffer and the fill limits run parallel to the lot lines, and maybe shift them a little bit back towards the highway to give yourself some more attenuation zone before you get to the wetland area, so that we can make sure that anything that does leach into the ground at the landfill has time to filter through the sand and gravel before it gets to the wetland. So I think there's some real opportunities with this site. I'm excited about it, but I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to landfills. So I'm like I said, I'm very happy with the results we've got in 2023. If there was some real bad water quality, that might limit our opportunities here. But given what we've seen so far, I think that there's some promise here, and Alana and I are going to take the next steps. So we're going to get into the MBCP consultation and background review, make sure that there's no big roadblocks from the ministry standpoint, and then we're going to lay out what we consider the roadmap to this application or this amendment to be with them. And then, yeah, we'll start down the road of the DNO plan and probably a Hydro G study, but we can use the groundwater monitoring program to support that. And then, yeah, do the application. So that's that one. So we can double back at the end and have questions, or if you guys want to stop now, we can have questions now. I'll leave it up to you.
Do you have any questions now, or we'll just wait?
I can wait.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead
Question.
to the Wolf Lake?
Yeah, Wolf Lake's a lot simpler. So so similar to Bear Creek, I've laid it out the same way, the presentation. So this site, there's 10 monitoring wells and 3 surface water stations. Again, we had to do some modifications to the riser pipes to make sure that everything could be locked, and there was no issues with surficial seals or anything like that. So that was done. This is a layout of the site and all the monitoring wells that are out here. You can see this one here, the property line and the limits of the landfill. They definitely have tried to align them the best they could on the backside here. So that's kind of what I want to do for Bear as well. So yeah, for this one here, there seems to be some landfill related impacts in the immediate vicinity of the landfill. As you move further away from the landfill, you do see some natural attenuation of those parameters back towards background. They don't actually get back to the background levels, but they do perform very well. The site is continuing to operate as designed. That's the way it is designed. It's a natural attenuation type facility. And that's why you have like a 4-hectare landfill within a 10-hectare total area. You know what I mean? Like those are the ways that's the way these things are designed, is they give you a small little footprint within a greater tract of land so that you can have those natural attenuation of any impacts. It's not interpreted that we have any surface water issues, and there's no threat to aquatic life by any landfill derived leachate or anything like that. So for this one here, in those trigger wells, the ones that are furthest down gradient, closest to the property line, we have barium, chloride, and DOC at number 11. And then we have iron and manganese at both locations. Barium is a health-related parameter. So it is one that we have to watch. However, it doesn't exceed the drinking water standards. Similar to Bear Creek, the B7 triggers for health-related parameters are established at 25% of the drinking water standard. So very, very conservative, and it's to give us time to address any concerns if we have to. So yeah, we're going to continue to watch that, and it does not appear right now that that there's any big issues there. The nearest down gradient well is over 1,000 meters away from the site, and there is additional property further down gradient to give us additional attenuation if we need it. So it's just, I think this one is a bit of an artifact of where the well is compared to the actual property line. If we went and moved the well to the actual property line, we'd probably be in full compliance. So yeah, so based on that, I don't consider it to be significant at this time. And then similar to Bear, there's no landfill gas migration, probably based on the size of these sites. They're just not big enough to generate gas. All right. So with this one, yeah, same thing. Just continue on with the program, groundwater, surface water, and landfill gas in the spring and fall of 2024. And once again, just continue on with the topographic surveys every year so that we can get a good understanding of the waste deposition rate. So yeah, for everyone's memory on this one, the license for this one is 54,770 cubic meters. As of 2021 in that survey, it said that we still had about 44,000 remaining. So, and then the survey that Alana did last year in 2022 said that we had about 41,000 remaining. So it seems like we're bringing in about 2,500 cubes a year to this site, and that equates to a landfill lifespan of about 17,000 years, or 17 and a half years. So if we, again, we did the survey this fall, and we're going to establish a running average, and hopefully that'll smooth out any weird and wonderful things that have happened at the landfill this year. Sometimes if you have like a big demolition project, like let's say you knock a school down and all that material goes into the landfill, it can really throw off your numbers if you just look at it on a year by year basis. So we prefer to use like up to a 5-year running average to base your waste deposition rates on. And that's it. So I'm sure there's some questions and I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay, who wants to start? Steve?
Okay. Bear Creek. What kind of difficulties would there be encountered in aligning your lines with the lot lines? Changing the configuration of that site?
Yeah, so that would have to be done as part of the ECA amendment, and we'll do that in conjunction with the expansion. If for some reason the ministry said that they weren't willing to entertain an expansion at this site, like we wouldn't do that rotation. We would only do that if we get permission from them to do the expansion, and then we'll change that orientation and try and maximize the footprint that we can use here.
Okay, now changing the orientation, would that change the potential for leach hits and stuff like that?
No, it just gives us more buffer area between the property lines and where the limits of the waste would be.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
So you pointed out that the capacity of 40,000, and again, I looked over the original and it was 10,000, we went 25%. So it wasn't viable. So now there is an opportunity to double the size. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Now this process, knowing that we have approximately 4 years, how long does this process usually take? I know you're dealing with government.
It's probably close to 2 years to get it approved.
And I'm just thinking, so we look at this, we try to get this approved, and then in the future, perhaps Wolf Lake we do the same thing. Would that be possible? Or is it too big?
No, that's fine. We could do the same thing there. We'd probably just have to, we wouldn't be able to double Wolf Lake. I think the limit is 100,000. Like you can't more than double your volume, and you can't go over 100,000. So we could probably push that one up to like 99.9.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. I'm sure we'll find out as time goes on what this is going to cost.
One more.
Oh.
Well,
Do you have another question?
Yeah, for sure.
okay, at the Wolf Lake disposal site, you said the B7 trigger was triggered with the barium and chloride?
Yes.
How much over the B7 trigger did it go?
Whoa. Hang on here. Alana, do you remember? I know you don't know. I'm just teasing you. Wolf Lake tables. Just opening it up here. So
It's based on 25% of the potable water rate, right? Am I correct?
that's right. Yeah, it's 25% of the drinking water standards. And then there's also an addition of the background. But I mean, the background for barium is almost zero. So yeah, essentially it's 25% of the drinking water standard.
Oh, it is right at the 25%?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm just going to pull it up here. All right. So yeah, so barium, yeah, it's actually, so the drinking water standard is 1 milligram per liter for barium. So your B7 trigger with the background figured into it equals 0.26 milligrams per liter. So yeah, the down gradient 1111 is 0.31. So you're just over.
Yeah.
In the fall it climbs up to 0.36. And you know what? Let me check the historic record while I'm looking at it. Yeah, it's been elevated since 2021 at least. Let me see how far back we can go in the record. Yeah, even 2019, it's 3.2, and 3.4, 3.3. So it's hovering right around that 3 mark. So it's not really going up or going down. It's just kind of staying stable there.
Okay, thank you.
And
So
then the other one was chloride. Chloride is a bit of an anomaly. It's only in the fall. In the spring we were in compliance. The number for chloride is 126 milligrams per liter, and in the spring we were around 50, and in the fall we're at 150. But previously we had always been in the 35, 40 range. So I think that the fall result might just be anomalous. So that'll have to be confirmed by next year's sampling.
Okay.
Tim, if you realign, do you move some of the wells and perhaps lessen that?
Well, I don't want to realign Wolf Lake. The realignment's at Bear.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as we go through this process, and I forget what you called it, as you prepare that, do we look at, you mentioned bag limits. Do you have other things that would help us? Bag limits, we've already gone to clear bags. We've diverted, large mattresses, things like that to Wolf, but do you have other ideas that you will share with us, or Alana will?
Yeah, I think so. Some of it will be forced upon us, like the ministry will want to see it now. And other things, Alana and I'll just, use what we've seen work in other municipalities of similar size. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you to do things to, the level of the city of Sudbury or Toronto or stuff like that. I want to, you really have to deal with the scale that you're working with. But yeah, I think that there's some opportunities for, waste diversion and even segregation, stuff that's going to end up in the landfill. Like segregate it. And you never know when there's going to be an opportunity to reuse it or something, right? So one of the things too that we're seeing in a lot of municipalities right now is glass. Everyone's paying for recycling a glass, and some of them it's going right back into their landfills because there's no market for it. So you're paying to collect it, you're paying to separate it. So again, and I'm not trying to toot her horn, but like Alana's pretty smart young lady. We have a landfill where they were developing a composting pad, so they had to bring in a lot of granular material to level off an area before they paved it. And we were able to supplement the granular with crushed glass. So instead of bringing in 40 tons of gravel, we brought in 30 tons of gravel and we used 10 tons of glass. And then we paved over it. And, that was acceptable to all parties, the ministry, the city. So there's just ways to, what might be garbage to you and I today and 10 years from now might be like, oh man, I wish we would have really, put the glass in one area, or we would have put the metal in one area, or, whatever. You think about it, when we were younger and we used to go to the dumps with our dads, and just everything just all went in one pile. We even have municipalities now that are doing landfill mining. They're actually mining their whole landfill. They segregate out the aggregates and the cover material. They strip out the tires, they strip out the metal, anything that can be, sold for weight. And they're actually gaining volume back. Unfortunately, with the size of the operation that you guys have, it doesn't, financially, it just doesn't work. It's a huge expense. But some municipalities are doing that. And maybe in 20 years from now, like a municipality or township like your size, maybe there is going to be value in doing it. So it's just, one of those things where we have to try and plan ahead and utilize the space that we have the best that we can and be smart about it. And at the same time, be protective of the workers and the environment too, right? So like asbestos waste, for example, if you were doing big demolition work of buildings and there was asbestos going in, like, you want to make sure that that's well documented where the asbestos is going, so that if we ever do want to redevelop the landfill or go dig something up, we're not digging into those cells, for example. So anyways, I think that there's a lot of opportunity with this design and operation plan to really help maximize this asset, because I think I've told you guys before, that's what I feel landfills are. I know that they can seem like a drain financially, but until you don't have one, you don't really know what the value of it is. Like when you have to start trucking your waste to another municipality and pay for trucking and pay for tipping, that's when you really realize, holy geez, we let this one slip away from us.
Well, I can assure you that with your help, we won't let this one slip away. So we appreciate everything you had to say tonight, and we look for more guidance in the future, and anything that we can do with to help with your application, we're there to help.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Very educational. Hopeful.
Yeah.
Because as we mentioned earlier, and as he reiterated, not having a landfill or trucking it. I can't imagine the cost.
No,
No.
Have you talked to any municipality that's trucking their land to landfill? They're not happy.
No.
And they're not gonna be happy. There's nothing that's gonna make them happy.
That's right.
you got a little truckload, you live on Telecan Bay Road, you drive to Sandan. So you pack a lunch and maybe a snack for on your way home in the afternoon.
So yes, we're gonna do everything we can to help. So, appreciate the presentation. Landfill diversion program updates, proposal for next steps in waste reduction. We have that
The staff report, yes.
in the staff report. Come up with more.
We started this report in 2017 and we've been building on it ever since. So we've tried to update it to the most recent information that we have, including the mattresses and the grounding services that we've been doing. We don't have any of the results for the compacting yet. We won't have that until Pigeon gives us those drone readings, but we're hopeful.
Yep.
So at the end of this report, we do have 4 recommendations that staff would like to investigate to bring forward to council as options going forward to help improve the operations of the landfill.
And number one, Mr. McBride already mentioned, and I know it was mentioned at our public meeting as well. This is on page 13. And those are the recommendations to impose bag limits.
I think looking at the bag limits, we've been looking at different options for this. So because we have resorts and different things, we do have to look at the different bag limits going into those, so that there's some research that needs to be done. And it's a large project, so there is a resolution on the agenda as well, directing staff to go ahead and look into that so we can prepare that report. We just didn't want to start that work and allocate those resources without direction.
And it's a draft
Yes.
bag limit program. Because there will be, I'm sure, much discussion on that. Number 2, do you want to speak to that?
We were just looking at streamlining the operations of the landfill. Some of the things that we heard coming back were for the operating hours of the landfill for the 4-hour days, for example, not everyone can make it to the landfill within those timeframes. So we do have the opportunity to improve the working conditions for staff, going to a 4-day work week within there, keeping it at a 40-hour week and moving to 4 10-hour days, which would be the landfills open an extra 2 hours each of those days.
We touched on that. Was it earlier this year or near the end of last year? We touched on that. To me, it seems to make sense.
I think, and in discussion with staff, it seems to make sense. And I know when we, anytime we look at trying to get somebody to work at the landfill or temporary or anything, it's difficult. Let's say it's difficult to find people, and we have to appreciate the people we have there. And, this may work better, but again, it's a recommendation.
And when we put this recommendation in, it was in consultation with our landfill staff. We did speak to them if it would work better with the operations of the landfill and to make their lives better. And they did agree. That's why Jillian has joined us this evening.
Diverting more bulk items. What more can we divert?
I think we're doing a good job at diverting the bulk. I don't think we got rid of the mattress. That was the biggest thing, because mattresses just don't break down. They take a lot of space. The grinding takes care of everything else.
And we did see a reduction in our grinding bill this year because we did remove the mattresses, which creates a large issue for the grinder. So,
Okay, is there something else that we're grinding that we could divert?
Well, I have spoke to staff. I'd like to see us concentrate on the clean wood. To divert it out of there and put it in the burn pile. There's room for improvement there.
Okay,
What's clean wood?
Anything that's not painted or pressure treated, we can burn. So there was quite a bit I mean, staff has other challenges, but I'd like to start zeroing in on that and trying to get that clean wood over to the burn pit and burn it instead of grinding it.
So that's other than brush.
Yeah, other than brush, like 2x4s, renovation materials and stuff like that.
Okay,
Docks, we get a lot of docks that aren't pressure treated or that come in, that all could be burned.
composting is a big hot ticket item that has been brought forward on many occasions with discussions with the public. So what we can do is embark on an education program on how to compost on your own property and look at the different options as well.
we do have the advantage in this township that 99% of the people have enough property, they can probably compost there.
There are some issues with that. A few people are scared of attracting bears, so even though they are interested in composting, they're reluctant to do it on their own property. So if there's a way to get people to connect, so people with compost to give away and people who would like to accept it, I think that could be beneficial.
And I think that can be encompassed in our research to bring forward in our proposal to council.
had the other thing in the plan, and what you mentioned, and they mentioned Sudbury, and they have a thing every day at noon about the Sudbury landfill and whatever, and Dave pointed out earlier at their landfill, it's like back up and throw your compost there, you know? That's it, you know, and I mean, if that's gonna make somebody a way happier, feed the bear in the picture instead of the bear in their backyard, you know? I don't know how much trouble that would be.
A sign-in area for compost, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I have kind of looked at it. I mean, at Bear Creek, I think the edge behind the burn pit up to the one side, I think we could dump over that
Right over the
edge.
back of the.
And the bear, and feed the bears down there.
It'll be gone the
birds,
next day.
eagles.
Right,
Yeah.
and then as with Wolf Lake, where the old attendance shack is, just go in there and dump compost in there. No bags, no nothing, just compost. And then, it keeps the animals away from the people. They're there anyways, but it keeps the animals away from the people. There are some opportunities to figure something out there.
so, and again, initiate an education program. We tried to do that in 2012 when we went to the clear bags. And evidently they still need more education. And, that's something that we're gonna have to look at. And as they pointed out, you have to, in some cases, punish people and say, this is a whole bag of, recyclable, and you're just throwing it in. So here's what we're gonna do,
Yeah,
Because like you said, Dave, it's gonna cost us a lot of money if we lose this stuff.
oh, a fortune,
Yeah,
yeah,
and there were people here at the last meeting that was their big concern.
yeah.
Is what's gonna happen if this, so,
And Wolf Lake can't take Bear Creek's,
No.
it's just gonna fill it double.
Right,
Yeah.
Half the capacity
Right,
gone,
we
yeah,
will be out of time and we'll be out of landfill in no time.
yeah.
within that 10-year window
Yeah.
is what we
Yes.
calculated. And that's not
I think,
an option.
a good portion, a large enough portion of the people in the township are aware of what the cost will be to them if we lose our landfills. And
Well,
that
once
in
we
itself,
bag limits, which we're gonna have to. Then when that comes out and you're gonna be allowed 104 bags or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Then you get a letter with it to say if your bags have recycling, you'll lose a privilege of so many bags or something.
We do have some limits within our bylaw. and I think, again, there's room for improvement.
Yeah,
And the bag limit, the premise that we're looking at is 2 bags a week to start. And looking at the different properties and looking at assessed value. So we do have some challenges, which is where the resources come into this research. We have a trailer park. And how is that addressed? And how are those assessed? And how is that fed back into service fees? So those are the things that we're gonna look into and bring back to council for review.
I mean, it's achievable, it just needs more
Yes.
recycling.
yeah.
Exactly. And there's big changes coming to recycling and Blue Box program, but we don't have all those pieces. Dan and I have gone to different education sessions on it, and there's still not a definite answer from the province on how they're going to handle everything. So once we have a more definitive idea that we can bring forward to council, that will also be coming forward. And we're hoping to bring a representative from CIF in to help us explain that to council.
So any other questions? Because what we'll look at now is just directing staff to research and prepare a draft bag limit program. And as pension comes on board, they're going to say, we would suggest you do this, this, this. But again, we're already diverting big things. We're already in clear bags. So, I think it looks positive for us, but this is a start and we definitely have to start somewhere. So
That was the most positive message we've received from a consultant in the last few years about our Bear Creek landfill situation. Previously, they just said there was no opportunities. So things are changing and we're moving forward. So it's better.
like someone mentioned here earlier, every landfill is gonna be followed by this date, so you're gonna have to make some allowances.
All municipalities are the same boat.
Yeah.
Within the next 10 years, they're all struggling right now.
Yes, AMO put out a report stating that within the next 14 years, almost all of the landfills in Ontario will be full. So we have to continue to look at those options.
I mean, we just sent out 114 mattresses. That was for the season, but 114 mattresses we took out, and I think it was 300 last year that we diverted from the landfill.
We're the mattress kings. Anyway, if there's no more discussion, I'll ask mover to seconder for this and look out. Councillor Kirky and Butler. And it's number R 2023-207, moved by Councillor Kirky, seconded by Councillor Butler, that we direct municipal staff to research and prepare a draft bag limit program for the township of Nipissing landfill sites for potential implementation in 2024. All in favor? Carried. And we will move on. So the strategic plan, and Chris did move some.
I did move one item, included in the staff report. And that was, the natural heritage features seem to be a point of contention. And it wasn't really understood, so moving that within the local historical and natural heritage features table, and including the 2 items that we had under that heading, which was forming working relationships with Indigenous groups to ensure significant areas are protected during the development and sale of property. We do that now, and that is all part of the official plan and all of our planning policies. So we just simply move that into the official plan updates, and that will be continued to be looked at. And also consulting with Ontario Heritage Trust to identify areas of significance during development in Salem. Again, we have that implemented, that is part of our procedure, so just moving it there may help to clarify that matter. And that was the only change that was made. We did review the numbering of the tables, but the staff was confident that we could address the items provided in the table in any staff reports coming forward when addressing the issues and stuff. And so the numbering was not an issue for us.
Every strat plan is an improvement on what we used to have. I started out, and I know Tom too, the first time, there's a list, that was it, just 10 things on a list. There wasn't another word, just 10 things on a list. That was a strat plan. So there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more thought being put into it. And we're looking at hopefully achievable goals here in this, current term of council. And again, it was said, why aren't we doing, well, we are doing a 10-year capital forecast. The strat plan is this term of council because everything could change with the next council. And I think that's why we look at that. And when we're invited to do it at a longer period of time, these other things are ongoing and will always be. I mean, you're always going to have the landfill. You're always going to have everything from fire to roads to whatever, and that's going to be here forever. We hope. And so I think the strat plan looks good. I think they've done a good job and I'm willing to adopt it so I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Okay, we'll this side. Councillor Kirky and Councillor Foot. And it's number R 2023-208, moved by Councillor Kirky, seconded by Councillor Foot, that we approve the Township of Nipissing Strategic Plan 2023 to 2026 as presented. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. The next one is supporting a resolution, and we don't collect income tax, so, but we all pay income tax. And this is just discussing the volunteer firefighter and volunteer search and rescue tax credit, and it suggested that this should go from 3,000 to 10,000, as it says in Bill C-310. And any comments or questions? I know we're extremely well paid as mayor and councillor, and when I look at what the fire department does and other volunteers like that, I think they really deserve a tax credit,
Well,
Yes.
I do know that I had an argument a number of years ago, 17 years ago, actually, about the fire department getting paid too much. So in that year, I put all my hours, I logged every hour that I put on. Not a lot of hours, probably more than most. And it turned out to be $1.25 an hour.
Wow, you guys were really good.
It almost paid for my gas going back and forth. No, actually, it didn't come anywhere close, but
Right.
I'm in total agreement with this, that there's gotta be something, so.
It's a start.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the original request that we received was that we sign the petition, but as a municipal council, signing a petition may not have the weight that a resolution that we can circulate to FNUM and other organizations for support, showing council's complete support would probably go up for them.
1,700 signatures versus
Yeah.
one, so. Again, I'll ask for mover and seconder. Okay, we'll go there again. Counselor Butler and Counselor Kirky, number R 2023-209, moved by Counselor Butler, seconded by Counselor Kirky. Bear with me, whereas the Income Tax Act provides for 3,000 volunteer firefighter and volunteer search and rescue tax credit, and whereas volunteer firefighters are providing a valuable necessary service to communities at a cost for their personal lives and time away from employment for emergency calls, and whereas the tax rebate amount has not been reviewed or updated in keeping with the cost of living increases, therefore, the Township of Nipissing supports the request for a review of the tax credit amount and an increase in keeping with cost of living increases and to provide a value service reward to volunteer firefighters. All in favor? Carried. Okay, the next one is number 10. And this is for self-contained breathing apparatus. I'm gonna ask Will to comment on this, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So what we'd like to do is put out a proposal for SCBA's to look at the cost difference in purchasing in 2024 compared to 2025. So the standard for SCBA is 15-year shelf life. We have about 90% of our cylinders are coming due in 2025, so they're expired, so they're good for 15 years. This year we lost 6 cylinders. Next year we're gonna lose 7 or 8, I believe. So in 2025, we're going to have to look at SCBA's. By looking at it this year for the 2024, we're going to be getting ahead of the next NFPA standard, which they do every 5 to 6 years. So as right now, the rumor is from the manufacturers, anywhere from 30 to 55% increase come 2025. So we could be looking at an additional 40 to 70,000 for what we require. If we can bump it up 1 year, they're still good for 15 years. We're just going from 2025 to 2024. And we're not looking to purchase. We just like to get the quotes in, see what the cost difference would be, so we can make a judgment call and we could save some money, which everybody would like to do. And
it currently is a line item in the capital forecast for 2025 with an estimate of 150,000. And we have been putting money into reserve for the 15 years. We are currently at about a $70,000 reserve. So we do have the money to offset the costs. And if we can realize more savings, it would just be beneficial.
And if we do wait until 2025, we have to go in 2025.
That's right.
This way, if we go out and get a good price and stuff, we have the option.
I think the other thing that was mentioned, like anything else, if we wait till 2025, every fire department in the province, or is it the country?
It depends on when the
Right,
last
when their
purchase.
15's up.
I do know of 3 municipalities right now doing the same thing. They're looking to bump theirs up because of the standard change and the impact on cost.
Any questions?
I was wondering if now we act on this RFP immediately. Once the proposals do come in, do we act on them immediately, or do we put a timeline on them for the cost?
What we've done is, for our HR RFP, for example, we've placed in that RFP that we intend to act on it in the 2024 budget to give us some room to move. So we'll make that, we can make that wording to say that we're going to look at what those projected costs are going to be, that they are anticipated to be included in the 2024 budget or maybe move to the 2025. So we can ask for both of those pricing parameters to just give council all of the options moving forward with the capital budgeting process.
Yeah, okay.
So usually what happens is manufacturers know that they have 200 SCBA's coming for the next year. They can pre-order that and have it on the books. So that's by putting this out and saying about the 2024, once the capital is approved, we can act on it and still get it in 2024 and purchase and pay for it in 2024.
Oh, I know that, like, once it gets onto their books, then it gives them sort of a guaranteed direction that they're going in as well, so.
And they get locked in pricing as well.
So the process of, as we're working towards the capital forecast for 2024 and beyond, is we're taking a different approach this year and trying to gather this information earlier. And previously, we used to get it in the year that we wanted to use it in, so we didn't have those numbers. So we're just trying to be more preemptive.
And what we'll do is, once they're purchased, we'll start putting in the reserves for the next 15 years, like we are with our apparatus and bigger equipment purchases.
That's all also a part of our asset management plan for our core assets.
Any other questions? Okay, I need a mover and seconder. Okay. What, and Councilor Yam? It's number R 2023-210, moved by Councilor Foot, second by Councilor Yam. Whereas the NFPA standard for self-contained breathing apparatus units is changing in 2024 and 2025, and whereas the capital forecast for fire department equipment identified SCBA units for replacement in 2025 at an estimated cost of $150,000, and whereas the anticipated change to the NFPA standard may have a significant impact on pricing and supply of SCBA units. Now, therefore, the Council of the Township of Nipissing authorizes the circulation of a request for proposal for the supply of SCBA units for consideration in the 2024 and 2025 budget and capital budget creation. All in favor? Carried. Number 11. This, we had a resignation because a person moved out of the township and to be on township committee, I have to live in the township. So I need a mover and a seconder to accept this resignation. Okay. Thank you, Councilor Foot, Councilor Kirky. It's number R 2023-211, moved by Councilor Foot, seconded by Councilor Kirky, that we accept the resignation of Terry Reed from the Township of Nipissing Rec Committee and the Township of Nipissing Cemetery Committee. All in favor? Carried. And there is a letter included because I can't speak for the Cemetery Committee, but Terry was a valuable person on the rec committee, a sponsor, a chaperone, and everything else, and she will be missed. So there's a letter here and thanking her for her dedication. Next, number 12. And we have a letter of interest submitted for the vacancy on the Boston and District Union Public Library Board. So I need a mover and a seconder. Okay, I'm gonna go with our library board representative and Councilor Yam. It's number R 2023-212, moved by Councilor Kirky, seconded by Councilor Yam, that we accept the letter of interest submitted by Brenda Lennon to become a representative of the Township of Nipissing on the Boston and District Union Public Library Board. All in favor? Carried. Good. Correspondence. There's a lot. I know everybody has read every letter here. The first one about training opportunity from Sustainable Northern Ontario Economic Development Program. Number one, it's an information item. It starts on January 17 and takes 12 weeks, 12 sessions, let's put it that way. We're putting it out there because it was fitted to all of us. There are other training courses as well, I want to point out. And if anybody is interested in this, they should talk to staff. And this one is $725. And we also have other alternatives that you may be interested in at a much lower cost. So anyway, that's out there. I wanted you to see it. And if you are interested, please talk to staff and hopefully we can fill that void if you feel there is one. The next one is regarding cannabis stores in Aurora. And I think we've seen them, whether it be Aurora, North Bay, Callender. Most of the things they're complaining about here, the government set out, when we started this, set out these rules. Evidently, they've grayed or muddied somewhat. So I think the point here, the government has to follow their rules. Now, the point that there are so many of these, and again, I look around North Bay, I think natural selection may have something to do with this. You know, rather than, I don't know how they're all doing it, you know?
They're not, most of them are just scraping.
I don't, you know, we could support this on behalf of Aurora, or we can wait. We haven't had an application in Nipissing yet, but who knows? Calendar,
Maybe someone will get weeded out.
weeded out. You win with that one.
Yeah,
It is being circulated to AMO as well for action, so we could also wait to see what steps AMO would like to bring forward.
One would think that they would have followed the same LC or
yeah.
liquor license AGCO program.
So, and they wanted to limit the stores, extend to all communities. And it's interesting, but I think if you don't mind, we'll wait for AMO.
Yeah.
There are a couple here though. The next one is floating accommodations. They're coming. And Township of Lake of Bays, Georgian Bay, we had something about this not long ago. These people literally park right in front of your place. Anybody's place.
That was discussed at the association
Yeah.
meeting.
Yes. The suggestion is that we may want to support this being having a
Yeah.
large population on the water. If you want to support this, we'll put that on as a resolution for the next council meeting. Just by the number of nods, I think we have enough to support this.
I think it also leads into the situations that we've been looking at with the ice fishing bungalows too, so it could maybe help us to look at those.
I'm thinking all the quiet bays on Lake Nipissing, you know, like the South Bay, just about every little nook and cranny in the South Bay has a quiet spot.
Yeah.
You know,
So I think we will support this in the future.
I think we have a,
The next one, number 4, and I watched this on the news yesterday at noon, Yves Bourgoin, and I probably said that incorrectly.
No.
He's asking that in Ontario, they make it illegal to pass, completely illegal for a vehicle to pass in the left side of the lane, and it's marked with 2 solid yellow lines. And this bill is going to the legislature on November 21st. So they're not going to get a resolution in time, but we can support this, or we can wait and see what happens on November 21st. But again, I leave it up to council. What do you think?
I think we support it. The reason I say that is because I lived on 2-lane highways my whole life, And up until I read this, I thought it was illegal to pass on a solid double line, but Ontario is the only province that doesn't. It's not against law. It's recommended you don't,
Correct.
but I couldn't believe it. I went, really? You know, my whole life, and I've been driving for 50 years, 52 or 3 years. I always thought that it was illegal because common sense said it should be.
Common sense doesn't always rule the day.
I get that. As I get older, I'm realizing that more and more, but anyway, it could rule this day.
If we are interested, we can
Yeah,
support
absolutely.
this.
Absolutely.
The next one is information. The first page was basically telling us all the money we're getting. They point out though that we're getting 90% of what we got last year, so we're not getting as much money as we did in the future. But if you want to feel better, Southern Ontario is getting 85%, so we're still 5% up on them. And just from the Minister of Finance explaining the different OSIP, NORDs, the different funding envelopes we received. This was all OSIP, all right?
And last year, the township received an increase in our funding. This year, it's gone down a little bit, but last year, we were one of the few municipalities to receive an increase. So it is still within the parameters.
So if it goes down a bit, does it go down to what we got last year? If it goes down a bit, does it go down to what we got last year?
Or 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
I don't know about 2 years ago. And in 2023, for this year, we got 662,700. And for 2024, we're going down to 634,200. So
Right.
it's a slight
Yeah.
decrease, but I don't know the figure for the previous year.
Okay.
Okay, now the next one, number 6 on my list, a letter from the Command Community Center. And the board is asking council to aid in paying heating and insurance operating costs. And they gave them, I think they're looking ahead to when we get to budget items. And I'm sure we would discuss this at that time. The total is $6,044.02. Right now, we haven't even started on budget, so I think it would be a little premature to say anything at this time. But I think this is something that we will have to discuss when we get into budget deliberations. Is that okay with everybody?
I did advise the community center representative that it would be moved to budget discussion as well. So this was just an information item for council and it would be brought forward at budget time.
Okay. Because they are doing good stuff out there. And yes, we don't own the building and all that, but they are an integral part of our community.
They are, that came up last night at the rec committee as well, so it's something that we would definitely discuss. Which brings us to number 7, just thank you to the rec committee. So I want to thank the rec committee, the fire department, and the volunteer groups that helped facilitate this. And we do the same for Powassan.
Yes, the same amount was also donated to the Powassan Food Bank.
And then the next 15 pages. Thank Councilor Kirky for informing us of this, all this information at a much earlier date.
Except for, I didn't realize that the October meeting was the day after, or, no, it was, yeah, that was, she posted it the day after, and I thought that I had sort of, yes, October 18th. And I'm not sure if we had a council meeting after that or not. So I apologize for not coming forward with that if I missed it at the beginning of the same committee.
All right. Well, luckily, it was here in hard copy. Next one, Golden Sunshine Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation. That's info from September, and we've already had that, and we've had the October meeting, so. Good all over again. That was already presented. The next one, District of Perry Song, so DSAB. And I read on that as Mayor McIsaac, and he forwarded this, and it's strictly an information item on social media, childcare, Ontario Works, caseworkers, the Housing Corporation, capital projects, Women's Resource Center. If there's anything you need to know from this that isn't in there, please call Mayor McIsaac and he will gladly fill you in. The next one. Okay, it's the end of newspapers. Those of us that look forward to getting the Omagua News Thursday, Friday, or Monday, depending on what day they delivered. We'll get it no more. So now it's going to be an online digital publication. And what McKellar is supporting from Plimpton, Wyoming, and it's we always published everything in the Omagua News. And now there's a question of whether it's legal, and this suggests that according to the legislation, it's not, because it doesn't include digital publications. So this has gone from these, but it's also at AMCTO, and they've reached out to the minister, and it's Bill 21 to amend this procedure so that we can put it on digital communications, anything that we have to out or advertise. I will never see anything if that's the case. Well, but
The definition was very clear that it had to be in paper print.
very,
So per the township notice bylaw, for example, for a Lakeshore Road allowance application, we have definite procedures, including publishing in the Omagua News as named for 3 weeks prior to the application coming to council for final decision. So we still post 4 notices at the location of the property. We still put it on our website for those 3 weeks previous. We can incorporate putting a notice on social media. We still post the notice at our office, and we still mail it to property owners, I believe. What's the distance? Do you remember, John?
100 meters.
100 meters. So we take the property boundaries in question and we go 100 meters out, and we mail it to all of those people. So we do an awful lot to make sure that the people affected are aware of those situations. So by not publishing in the newspaper, we'll have to amend our notice bylaw. But I did speak to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and we're still meeting our requirements for public notice and notifying people and allowing them time to comment. And I think we can satisfy that by just changing our notice bylaw to take out the publication.
okay. So it'll be neat to follow this.
Yes, this is a changing item that we can just keep an eye on for now. But we will be having the notice bylaw come forward for change.
And the last one, did you get this one as well? I didn't have a number on it.
It got missed in the listing. My
Okay.
apologies.
No,
What
because I
this
don't have
is-
it. I don't remember seeing that title.
Let's save that one for the next
Okay.
correspondence, then let's place that on the next list.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yep, so they're good.
There was some confusion, so we'll just recirculate it to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to review it.
Last paper. Oh, the last paper.
It's okay. What we'll do is we will recirculate. So, I'm going to seconder to accept Councilor Butler and Councilor. Those other resolutions, we will pick up on the
Yes, I
next
have
one
them.
for sure. Thank
Pull
you.
aside, yes.
So it's number R 2023-213, moved by Councilor Butler, seconded by Councilor Foot, that we accept the correspondence as presented. All in favor? Carried. And the next one is accounts. For October 27, 28, November 8th. So any questions on the accounts? There it is, there. Many papers. And if not, I'll need a mover in the second. Do you have a question?
No, I'm moving.
Okay, it just came up really slowly.
Well, it's the accounts.
Okay, okay, Councilor Kirky. And Councilor Booth. Thank you. It's number R 2023-214, moved by Councilor Kirky, seconded by Councilor Foot. Statement of accounts dated October 27th and 28th, November 8th, 2023, totaling $155,997.02 be approved. All in favor? Carried. Our confirming bylaw. And mover in the seconder. Okay, go across, Councilor M and Councilor Turkey. It's number R 2023-215, moved by Councilor Yem, seconded by Councilor Turkey. We passed bylaw number 2023-43, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on November 14th, 2023, read the first, second, and third time, and passed this 14th day of November 2023. All in favor? Read. Last, but definitely not least, adjournment. A mover and okay.
That was fast. That was really fast.
Number 2023-216, moved by Councilor Kirky, seconded by Councilor Butler, that the meeting be adjourned at 8:08 PM. Next regular meeting to be held December 5th, 2023. Wow. Already.
Our last two meetings.
Wow. Okay, all in favor?